Let's take you to Canberra and bring in our political editor, Andrew Clennell. Andrew, it has been a long time coming. Watching on during that opening address to that news conference, it did seem like you could hear a pin drop in the room. The Prime Minister was very passionate, very emotional. It seemed like a really strong performance from him as to why this change is necessary, why it's important. And now, of course, various campaigns will begin in earnest to really convince the voters, Australians, that changing the country, as Anthony Albanese described it, is the right thing to do at this moment.
Yeah, it's the most passionate and emotional I've seen Anthony Albanese. And Ash, they talk about the Uluru statement from the heart. There's no doubt that it would break the Prime Minister's heart if this referendum does not succeed. And I actually wonder, there is risk, as he says, is this his Brexit moment if it doesn't succeed? You saw David Cameron resign over that. He's really putting his heart and soul and a lot at stake here. When I interviewed him at the Lodge in January, I said there's an enormous amount at stake for your Prime Ministership in relation to this. He said it's not about me. But it did feel about him when he became so emotional at the start of this press conference. This is something he truly believes in and truly believes this needs to happen for Aboriginal people in this country. That will go down as one of the moments in Australian political history, like Bob Hawke crying over his daughter, like Kevin Rudd crying when he resigned and was talking about the apology to the stolen generation. We could do worse than have another look at that. Let's have a look.
This moment has been a very long time in the making, yet they have shown such patience and optimism through this process. And that spirit of cooperation and thoughtful, respectful dialogue has been so important at arriving at this point in such a united fashion. Are there any circumstances in which this will not be put to a vote? The answer to that is no. Because to not put this to a vote to not put this to a vote is to concede defeat. You only win when you run on the field and engage. And let me tell you, my government is engaged.
Yeah, it was a moment, as you say, Andrew Clennell, I think you're right, that the Prime Minister's clearly decided that this is an issue worth spending his political capital on to get it across the line. Critics, though, they keep telling us, Andrew, we need more detail. After that news conference, after this week, where we're seeing the machinery going into what's happening behind the scenes here, do we now have all the detail, do you think, to make an informed decision about this issue?
Yeah, we do. I mean, a lot of these design principles they have released, speak to the questions Peter Dutton posed, the 15 questions. It says the voice would make representations to the Parliament and Executive Government on matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The voice would be able to make representations proactively, would be able to respond to requests for representations from Parliament and Executive Government, would have its own resources. The Parliament and Executive Government should seek representations in writing from the voice. Members of the voice would be selected by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, not appointed by the Executive Government. Members would serve on the voice for a fixed period of time to ensure regular accountability to their communities. To ensure cultural legitimacy, the way the members of the voice are chosen would suit the wishes of local communities and will be determined through the post-referendum process. Members of the voice would be Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander according to the standard 3-part test, which is already in legislation for various things. Members would be chosen from each of the states, territories and the Torres Strait Islands. The voice would have specific remote representatives as well as representation for the mainland Torres Strait Islander population. The voice will have balanced gender representation at the national level, and it goes on and on. So yes, they are providing the detail. They are providing the detail, Ash. But despite that emotional display by Anthony Albanese, within 45 minutes from now, we're going to have a press conference from the National Party where they're going to reiterate they oppose the voice. So you see the difficulty, and be very interested to see if Peter Dutton stands up today. So referendums, I mean, Anthony Albanese told caucus, unless it's bipartisan, they don't normally pass in Australia. Is he about to create history with this one, Anthony Albanese, because the majority of the Liberal Party room apparently oppose this body. Ironically, the Nationals and Liberals, when I talk to them privately, Ash, they believe in constitutional recognition. It's just the voice that they object to. They don't want this advisory body to Parliament, but they do want constitutional recognition. Now, Anthony Albanese is trying for both, and history will tell whether that was a wise judgment or not, because there's a lot at stake here. Sure, from a political editor for Anthony Albanese in terms of politics, but let's face it, there's a hell of a lot at stake for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in this country too. And would they feel a rejection should this proposal not get up? And there's also the question of the margin too. Polls show it's only 53-47 supported. You'd really kind of want 60-40, wouldn't you? Even if it were to get up. So, gee, there just feels like there's a lot at stake today, and it's come to a bit of a head. We've been reporting on it for a while, but it really feels like the thing's in motion now, and the PM's put so much behind it and so much emotion behind it with that press conference.
And Andrew, what do you think the public are in for in terms of the campaigns that will now really get off and running? We all remember the big debate over same-sex marriage. That was a huge moment in Australian history as well, and in terms of public campaigns changing our society of you know, the fabric of our society, you could argue. What do you think we're in for in terms of how this will now play out?
Well, the Yes campaign will have a lot more corporate donations, a lot more money behind them, and they'll produce some emotional ads, I reckon. And the football codes will get behind it too. That's always been the PM's expectation, and we'll have finals season about it. And that could well help get it over the line. The No campaign have less money, less resources. And will we see what they call scare campaigns around it? I've absolutely no doubt. But I think one of the critical things here today is Peter Dutton's reaction. We talk about big moments in politics. That's a big moment for him as well. What do you say after such an emotional press conference from the PM? How do you speak to caring for Aboriginal people and the gravity of this, and yet raise whatever concerns you have about this body? He looks set to oppose it. Will he oppose it? A big moment for Peter Dutton here. And, you know, a big moment in history for both men, really.
Andrew, there's going to be plenty more on this, as you flagged. We're going to be bringing our viewers across further developments as it happens. We'll bring you that news conference with the Nationals to hear their reaction to that significant news conference from the Prime Minister just now. Andrew, thank you. And of course, we'll be hearing more analysis from you throughout the day as well. Appreciate that. We'll talk to you soon.